Welcome everyone for today's study, Spiritism Inspiring Lives. All of us who already are here, all of those who may join us throughout this talk, and those who also will find us later on. Let's start our meeting or study with our harmonization process. For those who would like to close your eyes, feel free to do so that we can start to look within, choosing to calm our minds and hearts so that we can focus in our essence as spirits, immortal beings as we all are, children of God, brothers and sisters in humanity, ourselves and all of those in spirit who are also with us in this virtual spiritual environment. And we start our meeting by expressing our gratitude towards the Creator of everything and everyone, God, for His infinite love towards every and each one of us. We also give thanks for Jesus, the guide of humanity on earth, for His unconditional love, blessing every and each one who is learning in the school earth. Our gratitude for the enlightened beings, the spiritual benefactors who are with us, who anticipated us, preparing this environment for our learnings, our studies, our reflections, so that we can also learn a bit more about the universal laws, the law of love, about reincarnation, helping us to understand that we are spirits in evolution and involved in the blessings of goodness, of light and love, united through our hearts in brotherhood. We start our meeting today. So be it. So welcome for all of you who are here, who later on may join us. We are with our hearts full of happiness today, because we have our friend from Miami, Andreia Netto, who is with us, presenting the team today, the blessings of reincarnation. For those who don't know about Andreia, which is very rarely, Andreia is very, very known already, but for those who don't know, Andreia lives in Miami, Florida. She is the director of the Conscious Living Spiritist Group and the Spiritist Federation of Florida. So the Spiritist Psychological Society welcomes you and feel amongst us as we are, let's say, situated and located physically in London, but let's embrace us as brothers and sisters in humanity as we are. So we give the welcome to you, and also we hand it over to you, Andreia, for your to facilitate your team today. Thank you.
Thank you, Evanice. Thank you, everyone. And hello to the Spiritist Psychological Society. It is truly an honor to be with you today. We see the title of the program, Spiritism Inspiring Lives. And this is something that I feel wholeheartedly in my heart, is how Spiritism not only empowers, but also inspires people along their journey, along their way. So the topic that we were given today, the blessings of reincarnation, is one that is very profound. And there is a lot of material available today, not only outside of Spiritism, but in Spiritist literature as well. And I just wanted to point out the books that we utilize for our reflections today, which were the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec. We also used the book Glorious Days by the Spirit author Joanna de Angelis, who is also responsible for the psychological series and books that have been channeled or psychographed by the medium Divaldo Pereira Franco. We have also used her book entitled A Light in the Darkness. So because we only have a little bit under an hour, We invite you to dive into these books because the content is phenomenal, because there is a lot that I can't say in an hour, because a lot of the content that we do in a live presentation sometimes gets lost in translation or in thought, and there's nothing better than to get the book and read it and find the content. So we wanted to start with this question posed by Allan Kardec in the Spirits book, in which he asks the spirits, on what is the doctrine of reincarnation based? And they answer us, on the justice of God and revelation. We will repeat this to you repeatedly. A good father always leaves the door of repentance open to his children. Doesn't reason tell you that it would be unjust to keep eternal bliss from those who have not enjoyed the opportunities needed to improve themselves? Aren't all people God's children? Is it only among selfish human beings that we find iniquity, insatiable hatred, and unforgiving punishment? All spirits are en route toward perfection, and God furnishes them with the means of accomplishing it through the trials of corporeal life. Out of divine justice, God permits them to accomplish in new existences whatever they could not do or complete in a previous one. This answer alone is very profound, right? Because in it we find truly the blessing of reincarnation in telling us, in the aspect of repentance, what it means is that when we finalize this process of this present reincarnation, and we get to the spirit world, and we realize that we weren't able to complete what we started, or that perhaps we couldn't accomplish what we were set out to do prior to this present reincarnation, there is a lot that sets in the spirit. And so we find that there isn't a greater proof of God's love for us other than reincarnation. This process in which we are given many times opportunities to start again, to start anew, to have a spiritual business plan drawn out, if we can say it this way, because we were created simple and unaware in order to succeed, in order to evolve, in order to grow spiritually, and we could not accomplish that in one lifetime. It would be impossible. Let us take a look at all the inequities that we find in the world. When I may have an opportunity as a child to have a proper education, to have loving parents, to be able to grow up in a society where I have an opportunity, and then we look in other countries and we don't find the same opportunities for other children. So where would be the justice if there was only one lifetime, right? It doesn't go in accordance with God's love, with God's justice, with God's charity, which is one of the divine laws created by God, so that we can try to follow it and understand it and abide and live by it. So this new existences that we are given is exactly what is needed for our progress. A lot of people still question, doubt reincarnation, and it is okay to do so. We do forget about the past. We do forget about the planning that took place in the spirit world. And so when we dive into the flesh and forgetfulness sets in, it is quite normal that a lot of people may question it. Yet science has arrived and has provided us with many, many examples of the reality of reincarnation, such as the cases of children who have a memory, who remember their past life existences, such as the little boy James, the pilot. This can be watched on ABC News, on BBC, I think is also available. The life of James, who's now a teenager. He's now forgotten all about what he used to remember ever since the age of 2. And Carol Bowman, the psychotherapist, worked with him. She specializes in previous life issues and traumas and dramas that resurfaces as the spirit starts acquiring consciousness of oneself. And so some of these examples that have been proved is something that does find a place in people's heart, yet they still question. And it is okay to do so, because the Spirit's book, the book that actually launched, that opened the new era for us to consider with Spiritism, was one of questions and answers, which we do. We have questions, and Spiritism provides the answers. So we wanted to bring about the chapter called Brief Essay on Reincarnation on the book Glorious Days by Joana de Angelis, in which she makes a little bit of a history. She travels back a little bit in talking about how reincarnation and the knowledge thereof came to be. And this is what she states. And we shortened it, of course, because of our time. So once again, I welcome you to dive into these books. They will be available in the Apple Store and Kindle Store very soon, but it is available on Amazon in print if you are interested. She states, in Rome, reincarnation was highly respected by many philosophers such as Posidonius and Virgil. Virgil affirmed that souls, after wandering around the abyss, drink water from the Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, before returning to the body. Look how interesting this is. These are figures that had already a knowledge, an innate knowledge about things that we are studying in Spiritism. So Virgil affirmed that the souls, after wandering around the abyss, drink water from the Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, and then they return to the physical body. Sallust taught us that our current congenital difficulties and afflictions are natural consequences of past experiences. And this is something that we learn in Spiritism when we study about the perispirit, that semi-material body that connects our spirit to the physical body, that allows us to be able to reincarnate, which is an exact copy of our physical organism. So if by any chance in a previous existence I was shot and I died, I may reincarnate with birthmarks, such as we see. It's not a congenital affliction, but it is a form of a way to see that there was something that happened in a previous existence, just such as happened with many kids in India, where they reincarnate their kids. They remember where they used to live, and they remember that they were shot, that they were killed. And so the birthmark that they display, once they actually go back to find out their previous existences, they'll find out that the name that they're given is true. They'll find out that they died in such a way that their physical body today reflects what was impressed in the perispirit. It's as if it's a carbon copy. I don't know if you guys, this will determine your age. When we were little kids and we had two pieces of paper, and in between there was a carbon copy. So if I draw on the top page, the one behind it is going to have exactly what I drew. This is a way to demonstrate what we are trying to say. So Sallust told us, our current congenital afflictions are the natural consequences of past experiences. If we utilize our physical body in such a way that was not in accordance with the divine laws, if I didn't really appreciate my physical body and I allowed it to go into the vices of alcoholism or drug addictions or suicide or anything else, we are going to see exactly in the Spiritist teachings what Sallust is telling us and talking about way, way, way back then. Then she's going to say later on, Philo, a Jew from Alexandria, confirmed reincarnation, explaining that God created all souls pure, but after making their choices between good and evil, free will, the reincarnation cycle began. And in Spiritism, we learn that spirits were created simple, not pure, simple and unaware, or ignorant is the word used in a translation, as in ignoring the laws. And because we ignored the laws, we made the choices between good, between evil, between right, between wrong. And of course, we find here that we do set out the reincarnation cycle as we go through, making decisions between these two factors and learning from them as well. Joana de Angelis is an amazing psychotherapist, the spirit author, because she tells us that past mistakes, whether in this life or a previous one, are not mistakes, they are experiences. They are the learning tools that we need to be able to discern and not continue to err, because that in itself would be a very ignorant way of living. Meaning, if we made a mistake, we learn from it, we acknowledge, and we continue on learning from that experience in itself. So she'll go on to say, with the advance of Christianity, reincarnation was able to find its very solid foundation in the teachings of Christ. A lot of people say reincarnation is not noted in the Gospels, and they are, specifically when we see the encounter between Jesus and the doctor of the law, Nicodemus, and he says, how can I see the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus will say, it is necessary that a man be born again. And the doctor of the law didn't understand what Jesus was talking about. In his mind, he envisioned a grown man going back to his mother womb, so he really didn't understand. But then we see the revelation regarding Elijah's return as John the Baptist, when he referred to Elijah's being the return as John of Baptist. We find clearly the explanation of reincarnation. And then we see also Christ referring to deaths and consequences, as in the case of the man who was blind from birth. Master, who actually sinned, the man, the blind man, or his son? And so he will get into it, talking about the consequences from a previous existence. So what we find when we study about Jesus, specifically in the book Jesus in Our Days, I just remembered here, this is another amazing book. It's the very first book in the psychological series by Joana de Angelis, in which she talks about Jesus and reincarnation. And she makes this beautiful explanation that Jesus's promises are based on divine justice, in which we find reincarnation allowing us to rehabilitate ourselves from our past mistakes through self-forgiveness, to advance through the practice of the noble actions, demonstrating God's love for all of God's children. And one of the ways that we find this happening is when Jesus was able to heal some people, yet he did not heal others. And it wasn't because of his ability, for we know that Jesus, as a pure spirit, as a perfect being, perfect, using the word symbolic here, he was able to heal anyone, but he was able to see exactly what the person needed, and able to advance in order for them to rehabilitate themselves before the divine laws, which is why some people did get healed and others did not. It was based on what they needed for their physical body. And there's a beautiful book that hasn't yet been translated by the spirit author, Amelia Rodriguez, in which she talks about that. It was this woman who was rich, and her servant had told her she was handicapped, and her servant told her about the master and said he heals anyone with just a touch, with just a gaze. And the servant says, "Madam, you have to go to him. You have to go see him." And she does. She goes filled with faith. And when she comes back, the servant notices that she hadn't been healed, that she was still unable to walk. And so she says, "What happened? Didn't he not want to heal you?" And she says, "He did, but he healed my soul and not my physical body, which is very temporary." So she understood the message that it was necessary for her to go through that existence with that type of rehabilitative disability, for her to advance through her noble actions, through the faith in God, through understanding that life is a gift, for she knew that a present life would be, depending on how she lived, would be the decisive factor in the future one. So we find her going through with some of the testimonies regarding reincarnation with Neoplatonism, founded by Amnus Saccas in 193 before Christ, which produced a significant number of thinkers and even poets, church of fathers, to demonstrate that they actually believed in reincarnation. And she would say, she would mention in this theory or this essay of reincarnation origin, because he affirmed that souls could live without bodies, for bodies are of secondary importance, considering that the spirit life is the real life. And in this, we find a clear example in Spiritism when we see Allan Kardec asking about the life of the spirit in between reincarnations, in which Spiritism calls it errant state, errant spirits, meaning spirits that are still in need of reincarnate but find themselves in the spirit plane, in spirit colonies, or other type of settings, in different type of vibratory states than the physical ones that we find ourselves in. So they are there without their physical body, and they exist. And so this is one of the ways that they try to talk about considering the spirit life to be the real one, and to be the one that we needed to pay close attention to. So this was origin. And ever since the Council of Constantinople, reincarnation became that heretic doctrine thanks to the petulance of the Emperor Justinian. We find, however, that the condemnations against the doctrine of reincarnation in the Catholic Church was in reality something that oftentimes did not really align with how some of those who were in the church thought about, because they did believe in reincarnation. So what Joanna is trying to say is that throughout history, the concept of reincarnation, although scattered, in different cultures, in different settings, in different aspects of our history, they were present. They were discussed, whether they were criticized or not. It was something that has remained alive throughout the centuries, reappearing here and there in diverse cultures, until we get to 1857 with Spiritism. In it, we find the life does go on in such a way that the veil of uncertainty, of doubt, of question gets lifted, and we are able to see reincarnation in a whole new light. We find that we don't need to go through the writers, through the poets, through the thinkers, through the scientists to find the explanation in reincarnation. We no longer believe reincarnation because today I believe and tomorrow I may not believe it. We know about reincarnation, because without reincarnation, how could we possibly understand all of the differences that we find? Differences in destinies, differences in behaviors, tendencies, inclinations. If all of us were created at the same time and destined to choose our future by behaving in such a way that it is not aligned with our own possibilities, it doesn't make any sense. What resources would we have available if we were suffering from insanity, schizophrenia, other congenital malformations, if my capacity for discernment is impaired due to a severe limitation or dysfunction? How could it be? These type of differences could not originate in divine will. It would not be a blessed opportunity if we were to simply be set out to be tested as a fragile human being, incapable of choosing what to do and how to do it, for I would have no knowledge whatsoever. We find that reincarnation is a blessed opportunity because God aspires for us, humanity, to be able to reach a relative perfection to which we have been destined to. We are heirs of the universe. We were destined for happiness. So this happiness that we talk about can only be achieved through personal effort, for striving, for struggling, where we find that we dignify our existences, and we get to the end of it, we look back and we find that we acquired a little bit more of the virtues, of the strengths of the souls, because of what we did, because of our work, because of the tears we shed, because of the sweat that we felt when we worked so hard to get to the end line. And this is something really beautiful, because a lot of people say, well, can't the spirit simply evolve and progress in the spirit plane? They do. They grow because they study, they work. They have other opportunities, like Andreia Lewis, to be in the backstages and find out a little bit about what happens in the mediumistic meeting, what happens in the reincarnation process, which, by the way, is another book to read. It's Missionaries of the Light. It is the third book in the series Life in the Spirit World by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier and the spirit author Andrew Lewis. Seriously, if you ever feel like, I don't know, you know what, one of those days that we just feel like we're not loved, or we are not heard, or we are not seen, or we are abandoned, whatever it might be, where we're feeling gloomy, we're feeling blue, we should read and reread the reincarnation process that is shown in this book. How much love is given to each reincarnation, to every person on the face of the earth. Every one of us have received this unsurmountable amount of love in the planning, in the decisive factors, in the genre of trials that we want to undergo, in the significant people that will be placed among us, with us, directly having an impact on us. I mean, there was a lot of planning that took place. And so this is all so that we can reach what Joana de Angelis will call the stellar glory. And this is all thanks to reincarnation. We are basically shown that we are responsible for our own destinies, because we are going to find that through the process of self-illumination, which we all have to undergo, there is only one person who can make decisions and changes on my behalf, and it is myself. Of course, there will be others to assist. Of course, family, society, culture, religion is going to have an impact. But as far as the process of self-illumination goes, as far as being empowered by my decision goes, we are the ones responsible. And so we are going to continue here and find what we talked about a little bit earlier about forgetfulness of the past. And Joana de Angelis is going to also remind us that at times when it is favorable for the spirit, we are able to reach that material, that content, to help us continue through life. And that is usually given when you have a very good psychotherapist. And I must really stress here not to do transgression of memory, or try to look back into our previous existences unless we are ready for it mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, which is why a good psychotherapist, a transpersonal therapist, will get us there through different sessions to get us really solid in our balance, in a whole state of mind, because we might see things that may impact us. We might find our content in the past to be extremely painful, people that were placed beside us and that are present today. There needs to be a moment of maturity for us to be able to reach those memories. And if this doesn't make any sense, I'm going to remember, and I think it's in the book, either The Messengers or No Solar, if I'm not mistaken, and I will research this and pass on the message to Ivanice if I'm mistaken, so that she can post this information correctly, in which one of the spirit that was there was only given 300 years for her to be able to access her past lives and her memories. This in the spirit world. In the state of a discarnate spirit, she wanted to find a little bit more about her life, so that previous ones, so that she could be ready for the future ones that would be planned. And they only allowed her to go back 300 years. So let's consider that maybe 300 years, give or take 3 to 4 existences, depending on how much we lived, how long we lived, depending on how long we were in the spirit plane, right? So it's not a lot. And they do that because our capacity at times to really download all of that information can be very painful, particularly the unhappy circumstances of tragedies, harms that we suffered, crimes, anguishes, all of that overload can contribute to what Joana de Angelis will call a psychological instability that we would suffer. And it wouldn't be very beneficial for us to continue through the process of evolution if we had all that knowledge. It would be quite painful. which is why a lot of times the spirit needs to reincarnate, because in the spirit plane, it is quite painful, the guilt that one suffers from past mistakes. And so divine justice comes and says, time out, let's reincarnate, let's revisit some things, forget about this for a moment, and let's be concerned with a future existence so that you can find other stories, memories of joy, happiness, blissfulness, loving moments. And this is where we find the blessing of reincarnation. And let's remember that. I'm going to stress again, past life memories can trigger a recollection of very painful situations, of people that have been part of our lives and may be here with us today, in which we find their weaknesses, we find their mistakes, we find the offenses. And it would be quite hard to continue being married to someone whom we realize harmed us or that we harmed. So let's just keep that in mind. There is a very good reason why forgetfulness of the past is such a big part of the process of reincarnation. On this note, I'm going to go here to the third slide, in which Joana de Angelis tells us that the lucid awareness is the road to spiritual ascension, mainly when the forces of love craft the wings of angelhood. So when we become aware in the interval between one incarnation and the other, depending on our evolutionary level, we experience other states in preparation for our physical rebirth. We program future experiences. We accompany the process that we are going to be diving into the moral, the cultural, the spiritual, that all based on the development that we need to have. And so it's a good idea that in between these short periods, we become lucid, we become aware, because it's exactly that is going to allow us to achieve spiritual ascension, for us to evolve higher and higher. And on this note, she's going to tell us that reincarnation, the knowledge about there we go. Reincarnation, I don't have that on my notes. Thanks, Evanise. Reincarnation is the key to explain not just such instances that we talked about, but all instances differentiating individuals, even as we search for the genetic explanation for most physical, mental behavior phenomena, given that the very genetic explanation is the consequence of a choice made by the spirit to mold through its spirit, that semi-material body that allows the spirit to dive into the flesh, the physical envelope it needs to settle debts, to make amends, and to grow. And to try and explain this, we're going to find cases in which spirits reincarnate with no limbs whatsoever. They not only not have their arms, they don't have their legs, and they're blind. And this is a situation that happened in Brazil, in which a medium told the story of that reincarnated spirit. He had been a spirit who was a suicide many times. He would use any means whatsoever to commit suicide. And he would be reborn, he would reincarnate, and he would commit suicide yet again. And this happened a few times until he asked, what can I do to avoid such suffering that I actually feel in the spirit plane, because it is irresistible. The thing that I feel in the physical plane is such that it triggers something and makes me wish to repeat the action of suicide, which is something that we're going to learn in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, in which many people who commit suicide a few times in their different existences, they're inclined to do so in the present one as well. Something triggers a very painful situation that comes and triggers something within them that makes them wish to commit suicide. And so this specific man in Brazil, in a very poor place, asked, he was in a home that took care of him because he had no family whatsoever. So somebody had to feed him, bathe him, give him his nourishment. So it was life filled with trials, but he was happy. Isn't that something? I mean, he was happy. He was not financially well-to-do. He had no money. He lived in a home that basically was responsible for taking care of all his needs. He could not see, he could not walk, he could not do anything because he had no limbs, yet he was happy. And perhaps the happiness came from the peace and tranquility of mind to know subconsciously that in that present life, he would not be able to commit suicide because there was no way for him to do so. And sometimes we will see a situation in which people are saying, my God, where is God's justice? When you see someone going through the pain of a congenital situation, and we find the answer in the blessings of reincarnation. So Joana de Angelis will continue in stating that the knowledge about reincarnation implies responsibility instead of complacency and dynamic behavior instead of stagnation, since the person knows that his or her evolutionary process will be the product of their personal choice, and it is a happy one. So when this doesn't happen, when we don't take the opportunity that we are given in reincarnation, the choices of values in line with the good, suffering sets in. It is what is going to be followed by the urgent need for self-transformation, which can often be a painful process that can be avoided. So when we talk about suffering, right, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, here's another amazing book by Allan Kardec. We are going to see the causes of afflictions, the present cause of affliction, and the previous causes of afflictions, in which Allan Kardec and the benevolent spirits will tell us the difference between the two of them. When we reincarnate, we are given a different set of genre of trials that we might undergo. It's not a specific one, otherwise it would be determination. It's a genre of trial that we might undergo. Maybe an illness, maybe a situation that can provide us a very challenging difficulty in which we have to overcome. It doesn't matter. It is always aligned with what we can take, with what we can overcome. The spirits in the planning process of our reincarnation will never give us more than what we can carry on our shoulders. It is never going to be too heavy, although sometimes it feels like so. We will find the hands of our Creator cradling us and carrying us at the moments that are too difficult. But aside from our previous causes of afflictions, we are going to find the present ones, those that can be avoided, those that are unnecessarily brought on because of our irresponsibility before life, before ourselves. So Joana de Angelis makes clear that we understand this, that everything that happens to us in this life is a product of personal choice from a previous one, and everything that we do today is going to be a product of personal choices that is going to have a consequence for a future existence as well. Why is reincarnation seen such as a blessing, right? And why is it that a lot of people talk about, in the cases of congenital birth defect, for example, that a mother should simply terminate a pregnancy? Let's see about this, because in question 344 of the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec is going to ask the benevolent spirits, at what moment does the soul actually join the body? The union begins at conception, but it is only complete at the moment of rebirth. And we, just to complement this before we come back to this answer, we are going to find the Spirit author, Joana de Angelis, stating the process of reincarnation is the only one consistent with justice of God. It offers each and every one the same opportunities of evolution, enriching spirits with the noble conquest of thought, emotions, as they rid themselves of the predominating atavism stemming from the primitive evolutionary experiences. So if the spirit is actually joined at the moment of conception, this implies that all of that planning surrounding that specific spirit, all of the spiritual business plan, if you will, the maps that are drawn out for the spirit to be able to succeed has already taken place. Before the spirit is actually joined at that moment of conception, that spirit is hopeful for their future, for what he or she, in the condition in which that spirit reincarnates, sees themselves, aspires, feels faithful to be able to reincarnate and make amends for the past and have a new opportunity. Because what we find is that reincarnation also is not something very easy. There has to be a lot of things that takes place, the people in which we are going to reincarnate, and factors of where we are going to be, what happened in the previous existences, how is my reincarnation in this life, in this family, going to impact those around me. And when we read the books by Andreia Lewis, I encourage you to read the book Sex and Destiny. We are going to see two families and how they reincarnated at the same time in the process of making amends for past mistakes. And the planning that went around all of those souls to be actually together in the same existence is something that we can't even begin to understand unless we read the book Missionaries of the Light. And so when the spirit's life is cut short because of a termination of pregnancy, we find at times the pain the spirit suffers. And a lot of times processes of obsession that takes place because the spirit will become so, the pain that he's going to feel oftentimes turns into anger, into hatred, and obsession sets in from the spirit that was to reincarnate with the present parents to be. So it's a very serious situation. Spiritism will talk about it being as if killing a human being that is already here, born in this physical plane, because it's pretty much one and the same. The process of the union at conception means that there is a spirit already destined to inhabit that physical body. That the mold that is going to give its shape, whether it's a congenital deformality or a perfect spirit from the point of view of simply material or physical way of seeing, is already predetermined because of the peri-spiritual factors that are going to be taken into effect. So when we see this, and Joana de Anjos is talking to us about the process of reincarnation, being the one that is going to give the spirit an opportunity for evolution, for enriching the spirit, for giving it its opportunity for a noble conquest of thought and emotions, so that they can rid themselves of all of that which still keeps them behind, that is going to give them the opportunity to break free with their own wings from that cocoon and fly high. It's taken away from the spirit. And this is why we talk so much about making people aware of abortions. And a lot of people will say, well, what is it to do for someone who is not financially fit to have a child, right? Or who's not going to be able to take care of a child with special needs. And I can come from a place in which adoption was taking place, in which there are many parents that are unable to conceive because of their previous choices, often revolving on abortion, often revolving on not giving life the value that it deserves, that in the present one they cannot conceive. They cannot even go through the process of IVF. They try and spend so much money and they can't. And the only way to go about it is rescuing the spirit that is about to be adopted, that is in need. So this is really magnificent, how we find parents reaching out of their hearts to adopt a child, because there is no by chance occurrences. Often, a spirit that is connected to the adoptive parents is going to be done so even prior to them reincarnating. And sometimes that mother is the vehicle that is allowing the spirit to reincarnate, whether in a position of a perfect physical body or one with a congenital situation. And one of the other things that I talk about is how we as Christian spiritists have an obligation and responsibility to reach out. Do we promote baby showers for people that have no financial ability to get started with what they need for their baby? Do we offer assistance, or do we simply point the finger and say, don't abort because it's wrong, it's a crime? Or do we say, let us help you with it? There are other opportunities, other choices for you to make. What do we do? right? This is a very important question that we have to pose ourselves, because considering the blessing of reincarnation, we also have to consider the needs of the mother to be, the parent to be. We have to consider their emotional needs, their financial needs, their spiritual needs, their psychological needs. A lot of it goes through it, and we are here to help one another. And there are many ways in which we can reach out and try to help. And we find that when people want to do something, it is amazing what the heart can do, what the spirit can do in order to assist someone else. So what we see happening a lot of times, we're going to find that there is a great law called the law of cause and effect, law of action and reaction, in which we are all governed by, because we are responsible for the results of our own journeys. We will act with liberty, free will, to act responsibly or not. And we are going to be the ones responsible for the consequences, negative or positive, of our choices. So in this, Joana de Angeli is going to say, keep in mind that the reincarnation is an evolutionary resource divinity provides us. Reincarnation is a gift from God, from the spiritual evolution of beings. And then she will say, as much as it surprises you, you begged for the occasional afflictions, periodic diseases, and frequent moral testimonies so that your conscience would not forget the fragility of physical life, or the peculiar characteristic of human evolution, which almost always happens through pain. We can no longer act like the rebellious teenager who will say, I didn't ask to be born, right? I know many parents who go through this, I didn't ask to be born. Well, now in this adulthood that we find ourselves in, still teenagers, spiritually speaking, we can't say that. Joana will say, we begged for the opportunities that we are going through right now. Your spiritual mentors warned that you would lack resilience for the harsh confrontations of the physical journey. We were warned. Listen, you're going to be born at a moment of transition from a planet of trials and expiations to a regeneration one. Are you sure you can handle this? Because it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. And you have a responsibility for the betterment of our world. You're going to have this beautiful body of knowledge called Spiritism to help you, to guide you, to serve as a manual for you to be able to live by, for you to be able to have your answers to the questions that you have. But it's going to be very hard. Are you sure you want to go? Yep, I want to go. I want to, please let me reincarnate at this very decisive moment of humanity. Let me make part of this. Let me see if I can really be the heir of the earth. Let me see if I can inherit the earth, meaning to be able to be reborn, reincarnated, and planet Earth in the condition of a regeneration planet, regenerated planet. It's going to be through our efforts. It's going to be through our own responsibility. And so Joana de Angeli says, but because you could foresee a happy future ahead, you said that you would bear your cross with your smile. You would respond to slander with forgiveness. You would face antagonism with faith, and you would experience abandonment with courage. You would deal with pain with Christ by your side. You were conveniently prepared for the undertaking and the loyalty of the noble spirits who offered to help you as devoted parents, loving siblings, or faithful comrades are with you. You took the plunge into the physical fog amid joy, promises, determined to succeed. Let us read the very preface of the book Memoirs of a Suicide. And we find those spirits feeling afraid because they're going to forget about the past, but hopeful because they could foresee a joy, a future that would be bright if they were able to abide by the teachings of our Christ. And so she will say, this is the time to test your resources through your testimonies. Support yourself in courage and faith. your safety mechanisms. That's it. Put on your belts, your safety belts. It is courage and faith. You are where you need to be in order to grow, in order to evolve, to attain your liberation. Therefore, thank God for the opportunity to be alive, to be the one who cries, yet resists the situations in which others smiles for now. Because they are going to be invited one day to consider, through afflictions, through pain, their ignorant and irresponsible acts. We are no longer irresponsible human beings. We can no longer say that we did not know any better. We do. This is where people will say, ignorance is a bliss. It's not. It is better to know. It is better to suffer and cry now than later on. So basically, she will say, everyone is going to have their day, being invited sooner or later to reflect and to mature. This is going to happen in the spirit plane, or it can happen now, right now, before our present incarnation ends, before we are called to the real home. We can now reflect and mature on the decisions that we have made so far, in the way that we have been thinking, that we have been feeling, what we have been promoting. We can do this right now before we are called to the spirit plane. Because she says death is going to arrive. It's not going to spare anyone. It is going to call all of us, all of humanity, to the awakening, to assess the values before our own conscience under the watchful eyes of God. Not in a punitive way, as many times we have thought God to be, but in an educative way, for God is a parent, a father, an educator. And so she will say, never complain or keep an account on ingratitude. Keep moving forward. And to finalize, she will tell us, Jesus, who is perfect, experienced sarcasm, desolation, denial, and betrayal at the hands of human teachings, teaching us that true love is patient, tolerant, understanding, and never complains. He knew that earth is still a school of redemption, and the humans that inhabit it will undergo a process of learning and spiritual completion. So don't ever complain again. She will tell us to continue the message. Let his psychism vitalize you. Increase your interest in the struggle, always strengthening you. Attuned to him, you will overcome perturbing problems and challenging difficulties. Never harbor any doubts concerning divine help. Regain your serenity and uplift through prayer. Uplift yourself through prayer. Do not complain and act calmly, for every achievement results from well-directed effort and work. To complain is a waste of time. So open yourself to the divine good and be patient. Realize that you reincarnated, that sometimes it's quite hard. It's going to take a lot of us. It's going to test our faith. It's going to test our courage. It's going to be painful, but there will be moments where we will be able to breathe. And it is in that moment, in those moments, that we should try to seek to be in tune with our Master Jesus, so that we can feel the presence of the benevolent spirits who told us that they would be with us from the inception until the very end, our spirit guide, our mentor. This spirit who acts either paternally or motherly, always encouraging us, warning us, guiding us. And at the moment that we sleep, if we make ourselves worthy, and I don't mean that because we're not important. What I mean is, if we are meditating, if we are reading enlightening material, if we are trying to really strengthen ourselves through prayer, we will be able to see them when we fall asleep and hear their counsels even louder, even brighter, so that when we return to the physical body, awakening in a new morning, the next morning, we will feel like something gave us the strength that we need to continue on our journey yet again. Let us remember that those immediate family that we have beside us are the teachers that we need that are here to teach us about a love that perhaps we ignored in the past, or that we are here to learn the meaning of family yet again, that we are here to serve as each other's guidance, and that even if the other is filled with error, we can no longer state that we should also be filled with the same antagonistic sense of feelings, but rather that Christ would demand us, would ask of us to go home and be faithful until the end, as he did with Joanna of Cusa, who decided that she no longer wanted to be with her husband in that given life that she had. She wanted to follow Christ, and he said, Joanna, go back home and be faithful. Treat him like you would a child that is in need of your love and attention. Tell him that you're there to help him grow. He saw that she needed to be beside that immediate difficult partner that she had with her, that there were commitments revolving around the children that she would welcome beside her. And she took the cross, her own personal struggle, and decided to follow him at home. We are invited to do the very same in this present reincarnation, realizing that it is indeed a blessing to be alive, even when life becomes so hard. Let us extend the love towards the gift that we have been given. For God's proof of love truly shines in the proof of reincarnation. Thank you so much, Evanice. I'll call you back to our study here, to our screen, and thanking you for the attention and the opportunity. Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I think you have to remove, yeah, and then can't hear. Sorry. Maybe remove this one and keep the other one. You can't unmute yourself? Eu não te ouço. I mean, I don't hear you, but I can do the final prayer. Yes. Well, thank you once again. And let us go ahead and do our prayer right now. We can keep our eyes open or closed, but definitely open our hearts and souls, giving thanks to our Master Jesus, our older brother of all times, our teacher, our psychotherapist of our souls, for being given this opportunity of reincarnation and being part of your flock, for knowing that we can trust you, for you have been with us even before. that the benevolent spirits who work on your behalf, these missionaries of light, are with us, guiding us and encouraging us, trying to remind us during the times in which we can breathe, that we can see, in which it seems like the sun shines again, that they're present, that they are with us even when there are cloudy days and we feel like we cannot go on. We feel you, dear Jesus, for we have trust in you, for we believe in you, and we feel encouraged by this notion that we are not alone, that we are always guided by the forces in which we choose to assimilate with, in which case we hope through this prayer that we may connect or reconnect once again with the good spirits, those that are responsible for our lives, those that are responsible for the administration of our homes, of our families. And we ask that you continue strengthening and guiding us so that we can, day after day, recognize life as the greatest gift, our physical body as that divine vessel in which we have been given to be able to progress, and see it as that special tool that God has provided us with for our evolution. We know that what we cannot finish today, we will be able to finish some other time. But while we still have time, we will strive to continue to grow, to continue to learn, to continue to evolve and ascend higher and higher towards you. We ask that you bless the Spiritist Psychological Society, all the workers, those who are watching at home and their immediate families, and that our home at this time, the rays, the light that is shining, may extend to our neighbors as well. For we never know who may be finding themselves in tears, in anguish, in hatred, in revolt, in all of those feelings that at times causes people to seek suicide. Let us remember that we are responsible for one another as well, in the sense in helping each other, encouraging one another, and above all, loving one another. Thank you so much, and so be it. Yeah. Hugs and kisses to everyone. Take care. Thank you.